and the Spirit will always move on the darkness. And here's the crucial key now. The day that he rose is linked to Genesis. It's linked to the beginning. But it's also called the day of the first fruit. What does that mean? It means that what happened 2,000 years ago, on that day when they lifted that first fruit up, it wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning of the story. It meant that now they're going to go into the harvest and reap all this new life because this one has been lifted to the Lord. So what it means is, if the power of the resurrection, Messiah rose on this day, he rose. That won't work, but we got a new one here, a new beginning. New beginning. If he rose on this day of the first fruit, it means that the power of the resurrection doesn't just stay on Easter Sunday. That power is to be in every moment of our life. It means that this event isn't something from 2,000 years ago, this event has to continue on. The power of the resurrection is the first fruit. What happened on Sunday morning was the first fruit of the power that is to be in our lives all the time. So what it means is, if the resurrection power is linked to the creation power, Genesis, that means you have the power now in your life of what is in the beginning. In the beginning, there is no past. In the resurrection, you have the power to nullify your past, to begin as if there was no past. Even if you messed up this morning, you have the power to declare this is the beginning as if that didn't happen. You bring it to God. No matter what you did years ago, months ago, hours ago, minutes ago, the resurrection makes all things new. To live unbound by the past, that I don't have to be determined by my past. I don't have to be bound by my past anymore. I can start totally new. Even now, that in the power of Messiah is the power of a new Genesis, a new beginning. What is the power that you have in Messiah? When God created the heavens and the earth, there was no heavens and earth. When he created the universe, there was no universe. You see, God doesn't need any conditions to do his thing. God isn't a realist. We think, well, sometimes people say, well, be a realist, look at the situation. God doesn't care what the reality is. Even when there's no reality, he brings a new reality into existence. He's not a realist. It doesn't matter what the situation is. He just does it. That is the power of the resurrection. The power of Genesis, of in the beginning, which you have now. Which means that you are not bound by your circumstance. You don't have to be a realist, because the power of the resurrection is never dependent on the situation. A tomb is not a situation that is conducive for life. But he did it anyway. You have that. That means when you're in a circumstance that looks hopeless, you've got the power of the resurrection. You've got the power of the empty tomb. You've got the power of creation, meaning that I will not be determined by this circumstance. I will not be overcome by this circumstance. I will not be defeated by this circumstance, because the circumstance is not the final story. God's will is the final story. And I have that power in the resurrection to turn this around for life. When God said, let there be light, there was nobody to argue with him. I mean, the universe didn't say, you know what, I don't think I want to obey you today. He said it, it happened. The power of the resurrection, the creation, is the power to move obstacles and overcome as if they were not there by the authority of God. When God brought in the new creation in Messiah, it wasn't a creation that was an alien creation. It wasn't, he didn't say, okay, now Earth is going to become Mars or Venus. He was redeeming the first creation. He was redeeming the lives that were fallen to become a new creation, but it was to be what they were in the first place. The power of the new creation isn't that you become something other than you, but that you become the you that God made you to be from the beginning of the creation. You become the completed you. You become the perfect you. It's the power to fulfill your calling, fulfill your purpose. It's the power, it's all those other things were not you. The sin was not who you were to be. It's the power to overcome anything that is not what God made you to be. In the beginning, there was nothing. God brought everything, including us, out of nothing. In the tomb, there was nothing of any life. There was nothing to bring life. Yet out of nothing, God brings everything. So that means if we have the power of resurrection, what that means is when you've got nothing, it doesn't matter. If you have nothing, if you have the power of the resurrection and the power of creation, the power of Genesis, then nothing becomes a very powerful resource. Because when you have nothing, if God could take nothing and do everything, then when you have nothing and you've got the power of God, you've got no hope, you've got no reason, you have no confidence, you have no evidence of anything, everything is gone. You've got the power of God, and from nothing you can bring forth the purposes of God. When God created in the beginning, it says there was darkness, but God spoke into the darkness. And into the darkness, he said, let there be light. So in the tomb of Messiah, there was darkness, but God spoke into the darkness. So what's the power when you find yourself surrounded by darkness? The darkness is not a problem for God. Darkness is the ground for which miracles come. You don't fear the darkness. You don't get discouraged by the darkness. You speak into the darkness as God spoke into the darkness, the Word of God. And you proclaim God's purposes, and you say, let there be light in Messiah. Let there be light by the power of God. You declare light, the light of God into the darkness, and there shall be light. What does this power reveal? In the beginning, it was impossible to do anything. If you looked at the odds to bring forth the universe, it was 0. In the tomb, what were the odds of him coming alive? 0. But what it says that God doesn't need things to be possible. It says, with God, all things shall be possible. Nothing shall be impossible. Even though that means it could be impossible, but in God it shall not remain impossible. What does it mean? The power of the resurrection is the power of the impossible. That means you're in a situation and everything is impossible, and we've been in situations where everything is impossible, but God. But God. You've got impossible on this side. You've got but God on this side. You go with a but God, and the impossible becomes real. Happens. You have the power of